Hi everyone, just 2 minutes are left before starting the webinar. So I would invite you all to wait for some more minutes until everyone is getting connected. Thank you. Hello, we will probably try to start our webinar. I hope everything works well. If you have any problems, please don't hesitate to write us in the questions session. I would like to start with a short introduction, and let's hope that the other participants will get into the webinar during the next 1-2 minutes. Welcome everyone to Life Cycle Assessment webinar for waste management. Just some words in order to put this webinar into the framework of a series of 4 capacity building webinars, which are taking place in the framework of Blue Islands project. I'm trying to make my PowerPoint work. Let's hope it's working well. Yeah, just a few words on the webinar program. I'll do a short introduction on the Blue Island project with a short presentation, but also a feedback on the 3 previous webinars if you couldn't attend them. And then I'll give the floor to an expert, which is Melissa Kolnarush. She's representing EVA Group. She will showcase you what is life cycle assessment for waste management. So at the end of the webinar, we are planning to leave 5-10 minutes for the question answer session. So don't hesitate if during my presentation or Melissa's presentation, if you have further questions for debate, don't hesitate to write them in the questions part. And we will try to pick up at the end some of the questions to answer them directly to you, or we will try to come back by email to you if we cannot answer to all the questions which are written into the webinar. You will also receive tomorrow a following email with the recording of this session and some more extra information on the webinar as well as the presentations. So some words about Blue Islands project. This project is founded under the framework of MED program. It is a project which aims to identify and mitigate the effect of seasonal variation of waste generated on Mediterranean islands. And it is gathering together a partnership founded of 9 Mediterranean islands, 2 economic operators, 2 research institutions, and 1 interregional association specialized in resource management. If you wish to have further details on the project and to see what activities are undertaken, don't hesitate to go on our website or write us to the information email. If you're looking for further partnerships, or if you wish to register to our newsletter, we highly recommend you to visit our website and to write me or the Blue Island project team. Now I will just put this webinar into the framework of 4 capacity building webinars, which were addressed to the project partners and the interested stakeholders. The 2 of them happened during the previous days. One was on ICDM topic and the other one on circular economy topic. You'll see that these 4 webinars are somehow complementary. And you'll see also that the waste management topic cannot always be treated separately, and sometimes it should be considered in a holistic approach. I mean, sustainable tourism and the impact of tourism on environment is having an impact on different topics, not just waste management. And in the first webinar, we could see that speaking about climate change and ICCM approach, we should treat a lot of other thematics like water resilience, etc., etc. And in the second webinar, we saw that for moving to circular economy, we have already some solutions, I mean societal solutions and technical solutions. So it is interesting to work with these both topics, and also in territorial intelligence. This webinar, which will be focused on life cycle assessment, will start in some minutes, but I would like just to make a small teaser on the next one, which is on sustainable tourism and aims to showcase to the interesting stakeholders the educational and technical tools for its implementation in the Mediterranean islands. And another expert will come and showcase you some good practices which can be implemented also on your own territories. As I told you, for further questions, don't hesitate to write me and I'll try to get it back to you as soon as possible. And now, as said earlier, I'll give the floor to Melissa, who has technical experience in life cycle assessment, and is going to present you what this concept, what this terms and approach means, and how it can be implemented and experienced in the framework of islands. So I would like to welcome Melissa. I'll try to give her the...
So good afternoon, everyone. I'm just trying to share my screen. 10 minutes, if it's okay. Christina, can you see my screen?
Yes, Melissa, it's okay for us.
Okay,
yeah.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right. So my name is Melissa Cornelius. I'm LCA and Eco-Design Project Manager at EVEA. And today my presentation will be about life cycle assessment and its application to waste management. So a quick brief on EVEA. EVEA is a lead player in product eco-design and LCA in France. We have an expertise on eco-design and life cycle assessment on a wide fields like electronic, building, packaging, and so on. And our mission is to provide advice and help firms to communicate and integrate those tools, life cycle assessment and eco-design tools, into their strategies. So today the agenda will be in 2 steps. The first step will be about the understanding of eco-conception basics, and then we will see how to assess and why to assess the environmental impact. So let's start with the eco-design basics. So first of all, eco-design is the word eco-design is a mix between ecological and design, and it integrates environmental aspects in the traditional method of product development. First, in the 80s, we had mostly creative actions in firms with the ISO 9001. Then the firms moved from creative actions to preventive actions in the 90s with the ISO 1401. Then in the 2000s, we are today on eco-design approach and eco-conception approach with the ISO 14062 and 14040 for
Melissa, we have.
Excuse me.
Melissa, we have some noise in. I don't know if the others hear the same noise, but I think there is some bad connection.
Or maybe it's my microphone, which is maybe on my shoulders. Maybe is it better like this?
Now it's better. Yeah. Because we noise. Thank you.
Okay, and is it okay for this slide, or should I start again?
It's okay.
Okay. So nowadays we have an ISO 14040, which defines the life cycle assessment approach, which as you will see, is in 4 steps defined by the standard ISO. And we have other standards which explain how to communicate with results based on LCA. So the main definitions, first of all, eco-conception. So eco-conception is the way to integrate environmental aspects into conventional method of product development. It can be about goods or services. So what is an eco-product? All products which create less environmental impacts during their whole life cycle and preserve performance during the use. So, for example, you can see two types of eco-product. We can distinguish those 2 kinds. On one side, we have products which will have a lower environmental footprint for the same service provided. For example, we have low energy bulb and eco-friendly paint. And on the other side, we have products which give users the opportunity to limit their impacts on on the environment. And here you can see 2 examples, which is a water pressure regulator and, for example, a compost pile. So here you can see some examples. Here you can see a lamp which detects the presence of anybody in the room, and this type of lamp will avoid energy consumption. Here you can see a coffee filter, which has been produced based on recycled material. So this type of product can be said as an eco product because it avoids waste and avoid the consumption of resources. Here you can see this product, which can be an eco product because it avoids the consumption of bottled water. Here you can see a hand dryer, and this type of hand dryer are called eco product because they reduce the energy consumption of about 80% compared to the classical hand dryer. And last product, for example, this laptop with a wood panel. This laptop, for example, is not necessarily an eco product. It's just an illustration, just to say that the aspect of a product don't say that it is an eco product. So, for example, here to say that this laptop is an eco product, we should assess the environmental impact with an LCA and compare this product to the same product with plastic based materials to say that it's better than the one before. So now let's see the 3 principles to get a global view of the system after the definitions. So the life cycle assessment is first a multi-steps approach. So we consider all the steps on the whole life cycle. Life cycle assessment is multi-components and is multi-indicators. Those 3 principles we will see hereafter in details what is behind those words. So first, multi-steps. As you can see, when we assess a product with life cycle assessment method, we start at the production of and extraction of the raw materials, then the manufacturing, transport, distribution, the use at the consumer house, for example, and the end of life. So that's why we call it a life cycle assessment. It's because we start from the extraction of raw materials to the end of life of the product. The second principle is the multi-components. So as you can see, if, for example, we take a table as a product to assess, we will assess the production of the table, but we will also assess and collect the data linked to the product packaging production and the group packaging production too. Also, during the production process on the production line, for example, maybe there will be some materials, some inputs used, for example, the cleaning products. So all those types of goods which are involved in the product production will be taken into account. And for example, we can go to until the maintenance of the equipment, which will help to produce the product. So as you can see, we were talking about a product, but we take into account all the life cycle of the product and all the goods which are involved in the production. And the third principle is the multi-indicators approach, which is really important in this method because we can have as for example until a dozen of indicators. Those environmental indicators can be divided in different type of environmental indicators. For example, we have on one part here on this slide, we have on one part the impact, the indicators related to the impact on air. as you can see, air acidification, acidification of air, the ozone depletion, photochemical oxidation, global warming potential, and so on. We have also the indicators related to the impact on water or soils, as eutrophication or ecotoxicity. We also have indicators linked to human, to the health and health of human, for example, human toxicity. And finally, we have indicators on the impact of on natural resources, as abiotic depletion, for example. So in life cycle assessment, we can have, as I've said, like a dozen of indicators. Generally, we select a bunch of indicators which are the more relevant for the product and its context. So, for example, here you can see a little list of indicators to follow the environmental impact of a product. And you have the definition of all the indicators. I will not enter in the details of each indicator, but if you have a question at the end of the webinar, it's okay. So all those three principles to get a global view of the system, but why? It's really important to have those three principles in the method because it helps to avoid transfer pollution. I give you an illustration of this transfer of pollution, which can be assessed. For example, if I have a product like a glass bottle that I want to assess with the LCA methodology, I will select. I will see on this graph, for example, the different steps of the life cycle of the bottle. So I have the raw materials extraction, the manufacturing, the delivery, the use, and the end of life of this glass bottle. I can see that the delivery is the major impact on the life cycle of the glass bottle. So it's clear because this glass bottle is heavy, so the delivery will be more impactant than another bottle, which will be maybe less heavy. So the idea that we can have to improve the environmental impact is to choose another bottle which is lighter. So, for example, I can have an idea of a plastic bottle, and why not a PLA bottle? A PLA bottle which is bio-based. So this PLA bottle, for example, I will assess with the same methodology, LCA. This bottle is lighter, so for example, I can see on my delivery step that my impact is reduced. So it's a good point. But thanks to the methodology, which is a multi-indicator, I can see that on two different life cycle steps, like extraction of raw material, which is here the production of my PLA, agricultural production, and the end of life of my bottle, I will have a higher impact on those two steps. So with this example, we can see that it's important to have a methodology which can help to avoid those transfer of pollution by having the idea of life cycle assessment. So to get a global view of the system to avoid the transfer pollution and also to compare comparable products. For instance, I didn't introduce the functional unit, but the functional unit is essential to assess and compare different products. The functional unit defines the function of the system considered. it brings a reference which normalizes the calculation of input and output. It's important because we compare products, but finally we compare service provided by this product. I can give you an example. For example, I can have different functional units. Here I can have the first functional unit can be to light up 2 square meters of a restaurant during 5 years, for example, is a functional unit which will help to compare different products with this common functional unit. And it's really important to define this functional unit because in the comparison between different design or conception options and the comparison between 2 alternatives, or for example between a product and a future product, it's really important to have this functional unit. So a little summary of the slides we have seen together. Eco-design integrates environmental requirements for the design step onwards. We have the 3 principles that we have seen, so multi-steps, multi-components, and multi-indicators. And those 3 principles will help to avoid transfer of pollution and compare comparable products. And the final aim of this eco-design and life cycle assessment method is to improve the eco-efficiency of products. The eco-efficiency is defined as a ratio between the service provided and the environmental impacts of the products. And the idea is to improve the service provided in reducing the environmental impacts. And by improving service and reducing the environmental impact, it will improve the eco-efficiency. So we have seen the definition and principle of the approach. I can show you a little overview of the different eco-design strategies. It's also linked to circular economy.
Melissa,
yeah.
just sorry, before starting this, I don't know if it's my connection perhaps, but there are still some problems with the connection today. I don't know why, because we are using different computers, so normally it should work. I hope that the other persons are hearing us properly. I think Salvatrice wished to say something. Can you write us, please, if everything's apparently, perhaps it's my connection then. That's great if the others can hear properly. Yeah, because perhaps it's my connection, because there were some cuts during the presentation. That's great. Thank you.
Okay. So this is just your connection? Okay. The other can hear me?
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Great.
Great. So this is a little overview of the different eco-conception strategies, which are called the 5 R's. So the first one is the reduce. The idea behind this is to optimize quantity, the number of steps in the process, to reduce the maintenance, the energy consumption, the distance, and all the points that can be reduced on the life cycle production, in order to come back to the strict minimum. Here you can see an example, which is a monocomponent recycled and recyclable cardboard protection. The packaging is a strict minimum, and there was an assembly without adhesive, and the print was without footprint print. So it's an example of reducing. The second R is reuse. Refill, repair, convert from the first use to use recycled material, for example. Here you can see 2 examples of this reuse point. Foldable to become a hanger, this cardboard. Another example here is a reusable and foldable transfer wooden box to facilitate the storage of this box. The third R is recycle. So the idea is to design the product to allow its separability at the end of life step, and to adapt this reuse after the recycling to produce a new material. So here is an example of a chair with two separable components. You have the structure and the cover, which can be separable, which are separable for the end of life, and moreover for the to give a new a second life to the chair if, for example, the cover is broken or anything else. We have the rethink. Rethink is to imagine a new assembly, new technology, or new processes. So this is innovation here. For example, you have the Dyson hand dryer, which is a total innovative product. Here, this product used new technology. Instead of using a wide jet of heated air, this Dyson hand dryer use an unheated air traveling at around 400 miles per hour to dry hands. So with this innovation, they could reduce the energy consumption by around 80%. And finally, the fifth R is the report. The report is essential for firms who want to communicate. For example, here you have Patagonia Communication, which is an advertisement where they inform the consumers about the process to eco-design their products. So you have a little resume of the 5 R's. Here you can see a few examples of firms on different strategy. Ifixit is a small company in California which has a goal to show and share the fixed possibilities on different products. So it's a wiki site with wide access and open access to different manuals to repair the products. So this strategy, this action is about the lifespan of products. Here you have other examples of firms. On the left, you have Cannibal, which is an interesting example, which is a mini sorting and compacting machine equipment, which is capable to identify, sort, and compact different waste. For example, it can collect the cups in a company. And the cups, for example, represent more than 80% of the company beverage waste. So it's also interesting. Another example is on the recycling on flexible materials with a Texiloop. They have created a loop to recycle their materials, to collect and recycle. Also, you have two examples here of TerraCycle, which are initiative for recycling here for the cigarettes. They collect and process the cigarette to recycle the waste. There is another program from TerraCycle on the beach plastic cleanup program. They collect some sort of plastics, as you can see on the left, and recycle them. they give a second life. Or the few examples of films here on the left, you can see a bench from Mix Urbain, which is 100 recycled, which is 100 based on recycled material. So they use waste from industrial agriculture or household, and they recycle it with a low consumption material with an equipment and a process which is based in France, and also some other examples. The last point on this first part is about overcoming the common assumptions. So here we will see how to identify the positive and negative aspect of products from an environmental point of view. This is the first of the case studies we are going to see. We have 4 case studies. Here's the first one, is about a life cycle assessment of shopping bags. Maybe in the webinar on circular economy, there was a little example on this study, but I will show you the details and how to use LCA to compare products and identify hotspots. So this study was a comparison between 4 big types of shopping bags. The first one was the polyethylene bag. The second was the polyethylene tote bag, which is reusable. Another was the paper bag, and the final one is a biodegradable bag. So here you can see the different materials used for the bag, the weight and the volume of each bag. The polyethylene bag and paper bag had the characteristic that they were not reusable, instead of the 2 other one, which were the tote bag and the biodegradable bag. As I've told you before, the essential point is the functional unit to compare products. So here in this study, the functional unit was not one bag, because as you can see, one bag can carry from 13 liters to 30 liters. So the functional unit defined was to pack 9,000 liters of goods purchased in stores. I show you directly the main results of this study. So here, this presentation of results is in a table like this, because we set to 1 the environmental impact of the reference product, which was the polyethylene bag. So all the impact of the other bags that we can see on the right, the tote bag, the paper bag, and the biodegradable bag, all their impacts are expressed in relative to the polyethylene bag. So we see that the tote bag is interesting from after 4 reused. We can see that if the tote bag is only used 2 times, it's the environmental impact of the tote bag is higher than the reference product. Another point is, and more we reuse the bag, and more it's interesting. So it's logical. The paper bag is not so interesting compared to the polyethylene bag on those environmental impact that we can see on the left. And the biodegradable bag too is not so interesting compared to the polyethylene bag. But you can see the last line on this table is a risk related to the abandonment of used bag. This risk is not taken into account in life cycle assessment. Just to say that this risk is really important, and we can see in the mediatic context that it's really important. But as it's not taken into account in the life cycle assessment, in the study they add this risk, they assess this risk differently from the life cycle assessment method, and they assess that this risk is lower with the paper bag. So we can say that even if the environmental impact assessed by the LCA methodology are higher, we can see that this risk, which is really important nowadays, this risk is lower than the polyethylene bag. Rapidly, we can see the main key findings of this study. I didn't show you all the results, but the study showed that the production phase was predominant in terms of environmental impact for all the bags. That any reduction of the weight of all the bag is really important, and the reuse too, as we have seen. The transport of the bags had a low impact, and the bag production had a lower impact than the raw material production. So, for example, the production of plastics granulate was more impactant than the production, the transformation of the granulates to the bag. Beyond a certain number of reuse, as we have seen 4 reuse, and for this study, the best compromise is the flexible polyethylene bag. So it was the tote bag. So here is a slide on the how to overcome on common assumptions. We have, for example, the idea that there is a zero impact product, but no, an eco product has always an impact, even if its impacts are less important than another product. There is no zero impact product. We can see some advertisement on ecological material, but basically there is no ecological material or green material, as we say, because they always have impact. Nevertheless, we can choose materials with lower environmental impact for given application. Natural materials are not necessarily better. As we have seen in this previous case study, we have seen that the biodegradable bag, which was 50% based on a starch, maize starch, I think, this bag was not better than the other one because the natural material can consume a lot of resource, even from and moreover on the agricultural production. And those natural materials are not so renewable and renewed, and can, for some of them, can create health problems. And plastic can be a favorable solution depending on the application and function, and that's why the life cycle assessment is essential to compare fossil and bio-based, for example, solutions to know and to avoid transfer pollution between different products. So we have finished with the first step. Now we will see how to identify priorities and suggest improvements on products. Here we can see the second case study. This case study is from a little project in Fiji Island. This project was to redesign a backpack in the context of Fiji Island. And the idea was to redesign this backpack, taking into account the island context, which has a really big problem with waste, as many islands do. So because of increasing of urbanization, waste production in Fiji grew dramatically while treatment possibilities remain insufficient for the most part. So the idea was to replace a backpack by a new backpack eco-designed. The first one was a plastic backpack based on polyester with zinc alloy zip sliders and acrylic-based paint. And the other two alternatives that you can see, the backpack 2 and backpack 3, was based from cotton, organic or conventional cotton. And they use polypropylene instead of zinc alloy zip sliders to improve the lifespan of the product. They change the nature of the base paint and reduce the packaging of this backpack. Here you can see the final results of the comparative assessment of the 3 backpack. You can see the black. The black is the backpack 1. The light gray is the backpack 2, and the middle gray is the backpack 3. Here we can see with the stars the priorities which were given to the project linked to the Fiji island context, which is a waste problem. So they wanted to focus on hazardous waste problem and bulk waste problems. Here we emphasize the results on different indicators. So we can see that the comparative assessment between the 3 backpacks show that the new alternatives are better on human toxicity, hazardous waste, and even on bulk waste, because here the bulk waste is on the whole life cycle of the product. So, for example, the production of the cotton is not on the Fiji island, and when you only take the Fiji island context, all the production and transformation which have been done on the Fiji island, the bulk waste indicator is more interesting for the new alternative than for the one before. Here. The environmental impact are worst on the global warming potential, on the ecotoxicity, and water consumption and energy consumption. So we can say that the perception of the cotton, which generally has an environmental friendly aspect from the public, this environmental friendly material is not so environmental friendly, as we can see, because the water consumption is mainly due to the water for the cotton production, which is a big issue. We can see here on this comparative assessment that there is a lot of indicators, and depending on the indicator, but we have different tendencies. So this is difficult to choose relevant eco-design strategies. Here, for example, should we select a low-impact material, or should we select a renewable material? I'm talking about the cotton, for example. So this prioritization is important and difficult, and the life cycle assessment is essential to be linked with the context, as this project was in the context of Fiji Island. The redesigner concluded with this study that the new alternatives are better because on 2 indicators, which are the priorities, hazardous waste and bulk waste, the new options are more interesting. So that's what I've said. Also, the backpack performs poorly on a global scale on some environmental aspects, as for example, global warming or ecotoxicity or energy consumption. The new backpack is better for the Fiji environment. So this is the key findings of this second case study. So with the life cycle assessment, we overcome on common assumption, for example, the eco-friendly cotton that we can think in the first place compared to the plastic. The importance to take into account each context, especially in a stress context like the island context. Yes, the reflection after this project were to maybe include to maybe develop a local fabric to produce the backpack, and maybe to change cotton to replace cotton with bamboo, banana, or hemp fabric production. So this was a alternative that were thought at the end of the project in the way to reduce water consumption and improve and develop the employment of the island. And with this project, the researcher have raised the question that is how sustainable are solutions that create jobs and wealth in developing countries while protecting the local environment, but that cause environmental problems in other countries. So to assess products which are interesting on the local scale, but maybe not so good when you replace the product in its whole life cycle. The second point of this part is we will see the support of territorial investment and strategic decision thanks to life cycle assessment. So here we have the third case study. This third case study is based on a study about electricity generation in Mauritius Island. They compare in this study 3 types of electricity generation. One generation with bagasse, so sugarcane bagasse, one with oil and one with coal. The functional unit was to generate 1 gigawatt-hour of electricity. Yes, that's it. So as you can see here, you have the perimeter of electricity bagasse-based. Rapidly is just to say that we have all the crop, the sugarcane production, and all the inputs, which can be water with irrigation or pesticide and fertilizer and so on. And then the transformation of the bagasse residue. Here the results, the main results, with when you compare 1 gigawatt-hour of electricity with the 3 alternatives, which are oil, coal, and bagasse. Oil in blue, coal in yellow, and bagasse in red. First, we can see that it's clearly that the electricity from bagasse is more interesting on the climate change indicator. The net avoided emission of carbon dioxide due to the use of bagasse as an energy source is about 310,000 ton equivalent, which represent about 15% of all fossil fuel emission on the island. So it's really interesting on this indicator to use electricity to use bagasse for electricity. On the other hand, we can see that on the water indicator, the water consumption indicator, the bagasse from the electricity from bagasse is not so interesting because we need water for the irrigation of sugarcane, and for example, it's about 224,000 cubic meter of water to consume to produce 1 gigawatt-hour of bagasse derived electricity. So in the context of Mauritius Island, which is a water-stressed island, this indicator is important to take into account for the decision. We can see that there is another indicator, which is eutrophication, directly linked to the agricultural production. We can see that bagasse is not so interesting. Another indicator, which is not on this graph, but which have been discussed in the study, is the land area competition, which is really important in an island context, because to produce bagasse, we need crop and we need cultivated area. So it presents a competition with other use of area. So this was the case study 3. Just to say that with this study, the Mauritius government tried to take a decision in using bagasse for electricity. Not only 100%, but a little part of electricity could be from bagasse. And finally, this study is about a polyethylene terephthalate bottle. This study is about the disposal of those bottles, which is a big concern in the Mauritius Island. So this study was asked by the Mauritian government to assist them in a decision making. So they compare different disposal scenarios, as you can see hereafter. We compare the disposal of those plastic bottles by landfilling. So the plastic bottles that were generated by household were collected and deposited in a landfill. Another way was to collect those bottles and incinerate them with an energy recovery. And the third scenario was a half landfilling and half incineration. I don't show you the graphics, but the main conclusion of this study was that there was a highest environmental impact occur within the assembly and use phase of the bottle, and mainly that the electricity generation of Mauritius Island, which is from oil, had a high impact on the whole study. The incineration with energy recovery gave a net environmental benefit for most of the impact categories. So on the 7 or 8 categories that were studied, the incineration with energy recovery was more interesting than the landfilling on this step. So we can see that this type of studies, of FCS studies, can help for decision making, can help for redesigning products or services. And finally, I think I am the end of the time. There is a little slide with a take-home message. So what is life cycle assessment? Life cycle assessment is a reference tool for a systemic approach. We have seen that we study a whole life cycle of a product or service. It's a tool to compare, add, or evaluate consequences of an action or decision making. As we have seen in different case studies, the life cycle assessment was used to compare options, future prospective options, to take a decision. Life cycle assessment is a reference tool to evaluate the impact of a function, a product, or a service. Or maybe you can also use life cycle assessment for assessing a sector or an action, as we said just before. And life cycle assessment contribute to knowledge. One of the main interesting point of life cycle assessment is to be efficient, is to avoid pollution transfers and avoid false good ideas. As we have seen, the public or anybody can have common assumptions at the first steps, but with a life cycle assessment, you can show that the ideas can be assessed in a standard way, and we can compare solutions in a scientific way. 2 points of attention: the importance to take into account each context, especially in a stress context as an island context. A stress context linked to water consumption, linked to area surface, and so on. If relevant, it's interesting to complete a life cycle assessment with other analyses as social or economic assessment, and also more local assessment, environmental assessment, and to integrate all those results into a multi-criteria decision approach to take a final decision, crossing all the big topics which are environmental, social, and economic. So thank you for attending this webinar. And if you have questions, we can discuss. I think we have some little minutes.
Thank you, Melissa, for this very, very interesting presentation. I think we will all go back home with a lot of answers to what is life cycle assessment, but at the same time asking ourselves a lot of questions, because if yesterday, for example, or the day before yesterday in this circular economy workshop, webinar, we saw a lot of technologies which can be applied because they're innovative to waste management. Now we are sure that we have to take in consideration a lot of other factors before implementing technology on our own territories. I mean, especially on islands, because each of them should suit the environment. And it was very interesting to see that, especially basing myself on the example of bags, that sometimes we think that a solution is very interesting and sustainable, and when we are looking to the points you underlined during your presentation, we find out that it's not really the best one to be implemented. So I think that's a really, really interesting presentation to be taken into account further into our project and by the stakeholders which assisted to this webinar. I think we all understand that 1 hour it's not enough to understand and to find out everything about life cycle assessment, but it's a good starting point for for thinking further and for thinking about debates and discussions and looking on how to appropriate this topic into our project or into other projects linked with sustainable territories, dealing with solutions for sustainable environment, etc., etc. We had also some questions from the audience. We are a bit late, but we will try still to find an answer to them. The first one was coming from Michael Grelot, who would like to know, he has a very creative idea actually, he would like to know if it's possible to create some kind of life cycle scale as it is already done with energy consumption scales. He means from A++ to E or F used for light bulbs or fridges, for example, so the consumer could have an idea on the impact of the products on the environment. I think it's a very creative thing.
It's a good question, and it's a good idea too. There was an initiative, a French initiative. I think it was 6 or 7 years before, which was named Affichage Environnemental. And the idea was to give a mark like ABCD, ABCDE, on a big on products of agroalimentary products, but the project didn't came into its end because there is a lot of methodological points which should be validated by all the people around the table, and there was a lot of roundtable talking about the methodology and how to assess a product. For example, to assess a product from a cow, like milk or meat or leather. You have to do allocation on the product, and for example, the percentage of allocation for this type of product was a big issue. And until today, we didn't find there was no consensus on those type of questions. So it's a good idea. It was an idea which was discussed, but didn't came into its end.
Thank you. I think it's an idea which can be far developed by, I don't know, an international collaboration. I mean, a future project. Why not? But was this label? I mean, this idea. This idea, was it French because you named the name in French, or it was something European?
It was in fact, but there is also a European initiative. There is today there is a European initiative with the PEF, the Product Environmental Footprint, but it's not a regulatory it's not a regulatory assessment. It's more people who want to declare the environmental impact of its products can do it, but it's not mandatory. Sorry, mandatory. Okay. But the product environmental footprint gives some way to assess products. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And one more question was coming from Salvatrice Visini, who is a project partner, who was asking to what extent are environmental labels, for example, ISO 1425, followed at global level. What is the increase of environmental level product at the last years? I don't know if you know, if you have some information on it.
I didn't understand the end of the question.
I'm sorry. Yes, she was asking to what extent are environmental labels, for example, ISO 1425, it's just one, followed at global level, I mean, international level. What is the increase of environmental label products in the last years?
I don't have figures about this increase. But it's not. There is two main motivation for firms to assess their products today. It can be to communicate, but it can also be only in intern to improve their products. So it's hard to count how many products are now eco-design, as sometimes it's an internal study. I don't know if I answered to the question. Maybe I didn't understand.
Well, in any case, if you have some more data somewhere, just let me know, and I'll share it with the stakeholders. But I think Salvatrice is telling that it's okay for her, so she got the answer.
Okay.
And Maria Cladami was asking you, when you presented, I think she wants a clarification, when you said the functional unit as spec for 9,000 liters of goods, did you mean that we use as many bags as we need, or we use the same bags for as many?
No. Necessary? Yeah. It's the idea for this functional unit is that we want to pack 9,000 liters, but if you set, for example, two reuse for the tote bag, as the tote bag has a 30-liter volume, you will need to, for example, one tote bag with 2 reuse can handle 60 liter. So to pack 9,000 liter, you will need a lot, I think it's 150 of a tote bag to pack 9,000 liter. And this is for the tote bag. And for example, for the PE bag, by memory, it was 13 liter of volume, and this PE bag, polyethylene bag, was not reusable. So when you divide 9,000 liter by 13 liter, you will need around 700 bags. So with this functional unit, on one side you will need 150 tote bag, and on the other side you will need 700 PE bag. This is the idea of the functional unit.
Okay, very, very interesting. Thank you. Okay, all this is a very, very interesting information, I think, for all of us. And Salvatrice Visini was thanking you because she found the information you presented very interesting. I will probably close this session because we are 10 minutes late. So perhaps the others have other plans for this afternoon. What I can do, I can share with all of you the presentation. I mean, tomorrow you'll receive, as I said earlier, an email, a following email with the presentation which Melissa presented today. We will also try to share with you the registration, the registered version of the webinar. Let's hope it will work well, because I had some problems of connection, but we'll see. And also, as I said earlier, if you have further questions on the project, don't hesitate to write myself, and I'll try to get to you as I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. I'm going back just to the following webinar, which will happen tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Sorry, in the morning. I mean, it's the webinar on sustainable tourism, which is quite different from this one, but as I said, still complementary, because it is interesting to gather, I think, the information from all of the 4 webinars and to make a synthesis, because it's giving complementary knowledge on sustainable tourism, on the life cycle assessment of a product. And so I think it's very interesting to have the information from all these webinars in order to look for complementaries, and then to work further, I think, in future sessions, workshops, and try to look for collaboration and try to implement this knowledge which is showcased with us during these webinars. I would like to thank you, Melissa, again for your presentation, to thank to all the attendees for attending this session, and let's hope that we will see you tomorrow morning in the sustainable tourism session. Bye bye to everyone.
Thank you, Christina, for the organization, and thank you, everybody.
Bye bye.
Bye.